Welcome to Superhero Rundown. I'm Crimson, and today is exhausting. And I'm not even talking about... I am talking about Marvel's Inhumans. Yeah. I'm not excited. I didn't like this series, and I found it extremely boring. The only two likable characters in this were Lockjaw and Black Bolt. At least they weren't as flat as the other characters are. Lockjaw is the CGI dog of the royal family with the ability to teleport. He even gets an arc when he teleports Crystal to Hawaii from the moon, where he immediately gets hit by a guy on his bike and can no longer teleport. Black Bolt is the king of Adelan and has the most terrible power. He can kill you with a whisper, like he did to his own parents after his journey through the Terrigen Mists. The trauma of that, especially after being tested by scientists in the kingdom, made it so that he doesn't speak at all. He learns sign language to communicate with people. Not just Medusa, his wife, but also with the rest of the court, including his non-powered brother Maximus. Now there are some other good things, like Black Bolt doing as he likes because he's a king, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, running from the cops. At least Black Bolt knows that all cops are bastards. Good for him. Basically, the plot is that Maximus takes over Adelan, the city of the Inhumans. The royal family winds up in Hawaii and tries to get the throne back, which they succeed in, but at the cost of the entire city being destroyed and Maximus getting imprisoned in a bunker. The series does have some interesting ideas, but they go mostly nowhere. For example, in the first episode, there is an argument of whether or not Terrigenesis is random, or if it actually magnifies parts of the individual, giving them powers to reflect that. This is somewhat expanded on by the side plot of Maximus trying to undergo the Terrigenesis again. Terrigenesis is the process by which the citizens of Adelan get exposed to magic or science, it's unclear, and they get powers. We see someone get butterfly wings to show us the process. But the problem is that Maximus gets no powers, but he is privileged because he is the king's brother. Maximus, after the royal family escapes to Hawaii and he takes over the city, decides to contact a human to help him look at the Terrigen Mist so he can go through it again. If that was the entire plot of the series, we could have had a philosophical debate between the two sides. Those who believe that it's random and those who don't. And the question for the series could become, if Maximus goes through it again, will he get power? If he does, is he going to be as powerful as Black Bolt? Was it just a random chance that he got no powers the first time? We could have gotten so many different threads. We could have seen if he succeeded to force the royal family back through the mists to depower them. But we didn't. We got a royal coup and somehow Black Bolt knew about it?
Sure, Jan.
I hate this more than I hate Iron Fist. At least Iron Fist had Colleen Wing, fuck! The show is slowly paced. The CGI is terrible, to the point where they shaved Medusa's hair to save on the budget. Why would you do that? Honestly, with all the pacing and CGI issues, maybe it would have been better as a movie. Like, I understand you have a vision to adhere to, but if you're doing Inhumans, I at least expect Medusa's hair. There weren't a lot of other good things in the series, unfortunately. I really wanted to like Crystal since she's supposed to be likable. Fuck, even the fight between Medusa and Auron is lackluster because Medusa doesn't have her hair, which is her signature weapon. There are a few things that are accurate. The military shooting first and not trying to ascertain if there's actually a threat or not. Don't resist to Black Bolt because that's usually how cops treat both people of color and LGBTQ plus people. And of course this.
At times, he exhibits clear sociopathological symptoms.
He's a New Yorker.
As a New Yorker, that is both offensive and accurate. Good job. Now, originally, the series was supposed to be a movie that led up to Infinity War and Endgame. And there was a comic event called Infinity, where there was a Terrigen Mist bomb that spread all over the Earth. Eventually, Adelan was destroyed, and the royal family moved to the planet where they clashed with Thanos, who was the main villain of the Infinity Saga in the MCU. But Alex Abad Santos explains what happened in 2016 and how it fell apart. But in April 2016, it was announced that the Inhumans movie was officially taken off the schedule. And in November, it was clarified that the Inhumans would no longer be anchoring a movie. This was around the time that Marvel had announced it was bringing Spider-Man back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, indicating a shift in focus away from one of Marvel's lesser-known properties to perhaps its most famous character. Further, adding the Inhuman royal family to Infinity War might have been considered a logistical headache, considering how many Marvel movie characters are already set to appear in the film. But what happens when you try to follow the sources? They don't exist anymore. Not on Marvel's website, not with Newsarama, not with Collider. And yes, they are archived on the internet because the internet is forever, but it shows that Marvel is going to great lengths to make sure that you don't remember that this series was supposed to be a movie. The problem here is that a lot of the powers of the Inhumans would benefit from the movie effects budget. Medusa's hair, Crystal's elemental powers, or even Black Bolt's voice. And CW's Arrowverse has proven that you can do something like super speed or even Superman if you have the money, which Marvel has, so why did it have to turn out this way? The problem, as Abad Santos points out, is Scott Buck, the showrunner. Perhaps the biggest obstacle on the Inhumans' path to success is the person making all the creative choices. The showrunner behind Inhumans is Scott Buck, whose previous credits include work on 6 Feet Under and Dexter. But his latest work, and the one most relevant to Inhumans, is a bit questionable. Buck was the showrunner on the critically panned Marvel Netflix show Iron Fist. Yes, there was a whitewashing controversy regarding the casting of Finn Jones as Danny Rand, but that wasn't a reason Iron Fist was awful. The show's dialogue and action were glaringly subpar compared to its peers like Daredevil and Jessica Jones. But the show's mortal sin was not being able to find any excitement or fun in a martial arts series full of ninjas and power-punchy glowing fists. Buck and his team never seemed to figure out the superhero they had in Iron Fist, and the reviews, which hit right when Inhumans began production, were awful. It should also be noted that the show was announced in November 2016 and began filming March 2017, a really short, perhaps rushed turnaround for a show. And it got canceled after only 1 season, which is unsurprising because they put the first 2 episodes on IMAX, and the whole show was just not that memorable. People actually said this was worse than Iron Fist, which is hilarious and accurate because, again, Colleen Wing exists. There are poorly thought out characters, it's boring, and like I said before, if it was about a philosophical argument about the Terrigen Mist, it could have been way more interesting. Liz Shannon Miller explains what it comes down to about Inhumans. Basically, it comes down to this. We're given no reason to like or care about what happens to the royal family. In fact, a few characters get moments so off-putting that the idea of them not having any abilities sounds like a great idea. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence in all of this is that after Iron Fist and Inhumans, Scott Buck still has a lot of learning to do. Paul Tassi in Forbes explains that when it comes to Marvel properties, audiences expect some sort of quality. Inhumans needs to be a cautionary tale for Marvel that if they want to maintain the integrity of the MCU, which pre-Iron Fist had a frankly amazing run of quality for the most part. It's what separates them from DC, where an 80 to 90% on Rotten Tomatoes film is par for the course for Marvel, but for DC that's a Wonder Woman-like miracle. When people hear something is part of the MCU, whether it's a film, network show, or Netflix offering, there's an expectation of quality. Marvel needs to slow down and really consider what projects they take on and who they're giving them to. Maybe all of this is Scott Buck related and removing him from the equation fixes things. But it was Marvel's call to bring him on board this project and only did so allegedly because almost no other showrunners were free to make a show on this short of notice. The problem is that there aren't really any stakes in this story. It starts way too late in the events for any kind of proper lead-up, and we don't even get to know the characters before the coup happens. Plus, it's not really exciting, action or otherwise. Marvel really missed the mark with this one. Like, seriously.
This has been a Superhero Rundown production. I don't get to do everything and stuff that I actually want to with the audio, so sorry about the fan.